Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and this is another Snap Judgment review. What is a Snap Judgment review if you have never listened before or watched? Well, a Snap Judgment review, I think most reviewers nowadays in our current day and age get too caught up with 100%ing or almost near completing games. So they forget what the game is like when you just boot it up and play it right off the bat. So with that in mind, I play about 5 to 10 hours of the game that I'm going to be game or DLC that I'm going to be reviewing. And I'm trying to give you an idea whether you're going to enjoy it right off the bat or not. That coupled with the fact that I think games are one of the most subjective forms of art. I don't give a score to my reviews. Instead, I'll tell you an overview of what the game is, and then I'll give you the pros and the cons of the game in my point of view, as all reviews are point of view. And then I'll tell you whether I personally will be sticking with the game or DLC outside the purposes of this video. One more quick extra little disclaimer. As with all my other previous WWE 2K reviews, I don't play WWE 2K in anything other than GM mode. That is the only way I play these games. I do a little bit of character creation, but other than that, I just play GM mode. That's what I like to play. I like to download custom characters from other brands and or outside company characters. I like to stick them into GM mode, and that's what I like to do. I like to play GM mode. I'll put 200 hours into this game just in GM mode. That's just how I roll. So given that, if you want a full review of the game, like everything, the showcase, the island, the universe mode, all of that, you need to go somewhere else. This is just specifically dealing with GM mode. So what is GM mode? Well, I've done a few of these reviews now for 2K, and it's getting irritated to explain, but new game, new explanation. GM mode is this. You take on the role of a booker. You step into basically the proverbial ratings ring with other GMs, up to 3 other GMs, so it's a 4-player total thing. You pick your GM that you're playing, you pick your brand that you're representing, then you do a full draft of all the wrestlers that you have in your current draft pool. You can also set you have a certain amount of money on that draft and a certain amount of money overall, and booking matches cost money, hiring wrestlers cost money, and the whole time you're in a competition for Hall of Fame trophies and or fans, and you're trying to beat the others in the ratings through 25 weeks, like a truncated wrestling season. So you go through, in this time around, they've changed a couple of things, as they always do. There are 4 weeks of normal shows. 3 weeks of normal shows. Then you get a go-home show, which is kind of like your own PLE, pay-per-view sort of event. Now what they do, instead of everybody getting to book their own pay-per-views, you get what's called a cross-brand PLE, and this is very exciting. So the cross-brand PLEs, the PLEs, everybody shares them. The mid-card matches, how many spots are available depending on how many players you have, and you can book your own stuff there, but there's only ever a maximum of 4. And then the opener and the main event are wrestlers from each participating brand competing against each other for extremely powerful power cards. And since I haven't explained what power cards are things that you can also purchase with your in-game money that either affect other players or affect you or affect wrestlers in positive or negative ways. So it's kind of like playing nasty cards on people or playing a card on yourself to boost your abilities that week. They're pretty big deals, and the cards that you can win in these cross-brand PLEs are huge. The way they do it, you don't know what you're going to get. You usually get a women's match and a men's match. The women's match is usually the opener, the men's match is usually the closer. And I will say this, whatever those match types are completely random. I've only been able to play through a cross-brand PLE with a 4-player game, which I found very interesting. They also work in their tag team matches, where it can be 2 2 brands versus 2 brands, and then the 2 winning brands each get a copy of that card. So it makes things really crazy and interesting. Plus, it adds that level of fighting the other person. The previous GM modes, it was all about you just having the better scores at the end. So it was much more you kind of competing against yourself. Even when you're sitting next to a guy and he's making fun of you, it's all just the stats at the end. This one, you can really put together matches, then watch those matches and kind of go crazy while it happens. And I think that is a really cool addition. You will book all the way through these 25 weeks. At the end of the 25 weeks, the game asks if you have the required number of Hall of Fame trophies. You can set them this year. Before it was always 10 trophies, but now you can set them so you can decide how long your season is. And if somebody has reached that required level of Hall of Fame trophies, then the game ends, and the person with either the highest amount of Hall of Fame trophies or the person with the most fans wins the mode. And yeah, that's nice. I do like some of the quality of life improvements that they've made here. But basically that's the mode. Through each week, you'll be kind of like showered with emails. You'll manage morale. You'll manage your wrestling promotion. And really, if you're a heavy wrestling fan, one of those people who really watches the dirt, like looks at the dirt sheets, watches the behind the scenes stuff, gets into wrestling documentaries like myself, this is the game for you. I also truly enjoy the fact that I can spectate these matches too, so I can put those dream matches together and watch them. And honestly, the watching is pretty enjoyable this year. There is a couple of downsides, which we'll get to in the cons, but there's a couple of upsides too. The AI is a lot better, both for the GMs playing against you and not. They added a whole mess of extra GMs this year. I think the max they had was, I want to say, like 8 before, and it's like something like 15 now. All sorts of crazy GMs in there, and they all have different powers, and it's really cool. You could still put in your custom GMs, which is great. Yeah, they only added 1 brand though, which is the My Rise brand of Mutiny, which we'll talk about again in the cons. But an extra brand is still an extra brand. They also added online play. I do want to just quickly tell everybody out there, I did not attempt online play, nor will I be trying to attempt online play. As cool as this feature is that they add, as much as I have wanted it, until I can watch the matches, I don't want anything to do with it. I like watching the matches. I don't like just seeing the 1, 2, 3, somebody won, somebody lost, especially when I get to the championship matches. Don't get me wrong. I'm not watching every match on every show. There's plenty of matches I'm just simulating through. But I want to see my main events. I want to watch the crossband ones. I want to see who wins. Without that, it loses something for me. And so I am not going to be dipping my feet into the cross-brand, into the online stuff, at least at this particular juncture. Hopefully there'll be future updates, maybe not to this game, but maybe the next iteration where we can actually watch matches online, and then I will get into it more. So let's get into the pros and the cons. Pros first. I always like to start positive. First and foremost, the crossband PLEs, I think, are a big win. I know that this is divisive online. There are plenty of people who would much rather just have control of their own PLE and decide their own bookings. But I really like the addition of the Go Home show, because that's basically your solo PLE. And it's whatever you want it to be, and I like that. I like that also we get a chance to resolve matches at the Go Home show, but we also get a chance to resolve matches in the mid-cards on the PLE. So we get 2 chances to do that, and I really enjoy that. Plus, as you guys have probably seen on our channel, if you also watch the OMGM, our Old Man General Manager show, every year we would do like a match where our created characters would fight each other, the GM created characters would fight each other, and I feel like this solves that. I want to have a match where I take on my buddy Jeremy and the computer, and we see who wins, and we're chanting for our wrestlers. I think it's really cool. I really enjoyed just doing it against the computer, and I know I'm going to enjoy it even more when I'm doing it with a friend. So I think the cross-brand PLEs are actually a win for me, especially with the addition of the Go Home shows. The match quality is a little bit better this year. Last year, especially right out of the gate. Last year, right out of the gate, there was some issues. Like if you ran a steel cage match, people would never attempt to climb out. They would just beat on each other for hours and hours and hours. there was an AI issue with the TLC matches where they would just climb and no one would ever try and stop them, so they were like 2 seconds long. Now, obviously, the updates as they went along fixed those little AI glitches and bugs, but I can safely say that this year around, the AI is pretty good. You put a match together and the match happens. I mean, is there still plenty of weird bugs? I am sure you have seen them on the internet. There are plenty of them to make you laugh and hoot and holler. But as far as the AI goes, it's much better this year right out of the gate, and I appreciate that. I also enjoyed the new balancing of the GM mode. First of all, one thing about the GM mode is what it's been for the last, 3 years before this. And I appreciate it, but it was always kind of more of a truncated having an actual brand, because actual brands have like 20 wrestlers on them. Whereas you would only ever have enough money to draft like 8, maybe 9, and really you didn't have space for them on your show anyway. This year, and a lot of people are complaining about this. Again, I'm going to be divisive here, but I like the balance better. The injuries are longer, so you need a bigger roster to replace them. You also have much more emphasis put on wrestler morale, which is a big deal. You can't just like run them into the ground and then not walk away from you. And then on top of that, you also have the fact that because the money is higher and some of the contracts are balanced a little bit lower, your opening draft, instead of being like 8, 9, maybe 10 wrestlers, you're looking at like 15 to 20 wrestlers on your opening roster. And I really enjoy that. I love the fact that I can come away with 14 wrestlers and still have about $500,000 in the bank after the draft to get started. It's a lot of fun for me, and I really enjoy that. Finally, my last upside I kind of already talked about. I love all the additions of the GMs. I think just having that wide swath of GMs added to the game is really, really cool and interesting. It makes things interesting, and I like the fact that you could do that. It definitely makes me want to play the GMs more than just a created character, and I think that that's cool. I'm very excited about that. All right, let's head to the cons, because there's definitely plenty of cons. Okay, my first con, just to point it out, there's plenty of glitches in this game. Plenty of weird glitches. I had Obi Femi walk through a turnbuckle once. I had one dude kind of fly for a while. Like, there's all sorts of little glitches, little bugs, which it's an annualized title. That kind of stuff happens. But just be prepared. It's there. It's there. In addition to that, I do want to talk about the match quality. I know I said that the match quality AI is much better, and I think overall that's true. However, I do want to say there is this trend that I don't love, is that characters with lower ratings get destroyed by characters with higher ratings, and that seems to be going up, like more, that happening more as the games come out than less. In 2K23, I felt like a 70 could potentially beat a 90. Like 8 out of 10 times it's going to be the 90 rated wrestler that wins. But there was still that off chance that the other one could win, and the matches were going to actually present good. That being said, I felt like 2K23, it was a little bit more in the other direction, and this one, same thing. Matches end really fast, sometimes when they're singles, and if you're putting a singles match, like somebody who's a low 70 against somebody who's a high 80 or a 90, be prepared for that match to be an absolute squash match. And that's a little bit of a bummer for me. I like it when the matches are more quality, and I like building up those lower rated wrestlers, those lower tier wrestlers, to be my star wrestler. And if they can't win the matches when I watch them, that's kind of a bummer. I wish there was some way around this. I wish there was some way that because we can't change the ratings of the wrestlers that are already in the game, I really wish there was some way of like, hey, I'm going to take this wrestler, I want to give it my GM push, and like while in GM mode, that wrestler would get a better rating, other than a fixed match card. I don't like that is just how it ends in so many places. The next thing I have a problem with is the equality thing. We talk about this every year. This is the first time we got intergender matches in the game. So excited about that. Finally, the women can fight the guys. Thank you. We've been asking for this forever. However, GM mode doesn't allow it. And then they go ahead and don't add women's titles to the ECW brand as well. It's just irritating to me, okay? I know ECW did not have women's titles. It was in the 90s when women's wrestling was not big. That being said, WCW did not have a women's tag team division in WCW, and this game does. Plus, there's no balance there. Like, I think it's interesting to have a brand that only has one-gendered titles and gives you that extra buff. But then there's no opposite side. Give me an Evolution brand. And let me have that where it's all women's titles and no men's titles. Of course, you then also add in the fact that you don't have any of the mid-card women's titles. So there are some things missing here. Just from that standpoint. I will say on the upside, women can finally bleed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think that's awesome. I love blood in games, and I hate it when my women's matches, when I book a really hardcore women's match and they just never bleed. I like the fact when that both sides can bleed now. I think that's cool. My next one I got to shout out is the no cross whatever character creator community creation thing. It's really irritating. The console has all these community creations because they have more community creators on the console. The PC is kind of left hanging, and it's so frustrating when I'm watching a video of like wrestlers that you should have, and I see really cool ones and then realize, oh, they're not for the PC one. I wish we could just get like a database of some sort where all the created wrestlers went to the same place, because that would be a lot better for me. That's it for my cons. I do have one more pro that I forgot to shout out, and it's possibly my biggest pro, so big mistake on my part. But the damage on the wrestlers in this is phenomenal. When they get punched in the face, they get bruises. When they get hit with a kendo stick, they get welts. The blood is way more dynamic and will bleed from different places. It is much better balanced. I love the fact when these wrestlers do a trading punches match, they come away with huge welts on their eyes. The damage in this game is way better and way cooler. Possibly the coolest thing about watching these matches, makes it feel more like I'm actually watching the dream match that I booked. And then whether or not I'm going to stick with it, you guys know the answer. I love GM mode. I've loved GM mode since they brought it back. They've only ever added to it. They treat it like their baby every year, so I feel like it's one of the things that gets the most updates every year, which is why I've ended up purchasing this annualized franchise for the last 3 years, which is obnoxious that I have to keep doing that. I'd love to have a chance where I skip, but just every year they seem to pour all their love into the GM mode, and I appreciate it because I think that the mode is getting better. I will say I do want to see some things change a little bit. The only time I don't love the cross-brand PLEs thing is when it's at WrestleMania. I want the main event of my WrestleMania to be my title, and maybe we could do something where like the cross-brand PLEs leading up to this decides who gets the main event or something along those lines in future iterations. But right now it's just another cross-brand PLE, which is a little obnoxious. So your go-home show for WrestleMania is kind of your WrestleMania. But I still, on a whole, I love the game. I'm going to be putting a lot of hours into it. I love everything about it, and we are switching to it for OMGM starting in, I don't think those episodes will start coming out until like mid-June though. So keep an eye out for that. Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Let me know in the comments below. You guys can also reach me on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on X at OldManGaming9, on Blue Sky, search up Axiom Games LLC /OldManGaming. And you can also join our Discord, links in the description below, and listen to all of our shows from there. As long as you guys keep watching and listening, we'll keep making them. See you guys next time.